Hi, it's Joy Foster, founder of Tech Pixies and the host of the Sparkle and Thrive podcast. And I am really excited. Today, we have the winner of our Social Media Service Provider Award for 2021 joining us today. Sarah, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Joy.
Well, I am really excited about this interview because you came into our program. I remember, I very often I remember that first initial conversation I had with someone and then subsequent conversations through the coaching calls. And this was a real shift for you. Tell everyone what you were doing before you upskilled with social media.
I am a musician. So at the start of the pandemic, I had literally just come back off maternity leave. I'd maybe been back in work 6 weeks, 8 weeks. Everything locked down. I had a tiny, tiny baby. He wasn't even one yet. And he's not an easy baby. He didn't like to be left at home whilst I was at work. And then suddenly I was like unemployed again. Nobody wanted recorder teachers, flute teachers in schools with COVID. So I actually joined that April Easter kind of cohort, the free training that you did, where there was a thousand women all kind of upskilling in social media together, and it was absolutely amazing. But I was still kind of very unsure of what I was doing with my life. But I took those skills and I worked with a couple of charities and helped them, like really, really helped them, and saw like the amazing work that social media can do. And the next time you opened in the August, September time, I just thought, I've got to do this. I've enjoyed it so much. I've enjoyed putting the limited skills I learned the first time round into practice
That's
and
so
helped so
interesting.
many
So
people.
you took the skills you learned from the free training and applied them and saw results and were like, okay, now I got to do the rest of the program. I
Exactly.
didn't know that piece of the story. That's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. And like I'm in such a completely different place now because but I mean before I started Tech Pixies, I was doing a job I didn't particularly like, but kind of was expected to do as a musician. And now I feel like I'm really making a difference and helping lots of other musicians
Well,
kind of get
let's get
themselves
into
out
that.
there.
Let's talk about what you are doing because I think there's, one thing that I'm very conscious of, partly because someone pointed it out to me. But I used to say, this is hard, this is hard, this is hard, everything's hard. And I think it has been hard for musicians. Let's not, it has been hard. But interestingly enough, you've leveraged your skills to help it be easier for musicians to get their names out there and to get uh, more recognition on social media, et cetera. So tell us what you're doing now and how you're helping musicians, because I find this to be really fascinating. And it's the reason that you won the award.
So basically, I'm working with a couple of different organizations. There's, well, 6 different organizations that are working in music in a variety of ways. So some of them are orchestras, some of them are smaller groups of musicians. One of them is a charity supporting a load of other musicians, which is amazing. And one of them is a streaming service. Um, so basically, I'm just doing all their social media. Well, there's a team of us now, which is amazing. And we're all musicians. So I think we'll talk about them a bit more later. But I think what musicians are struggling with is that they have to do it all themselves. If they're not a big, big, massive ensemble that has loads of arts council funding and loads of staff, if you're a small group, there's maybe 6 of you, and you haven't got a manager or an agent or anything like that, then you're doing everything yourself, and you don't necessarily have all the skills you need. And if someone like me can come along and help you out, be it give you support once a month or once a quarter, or in the cases with the people that I'm working with now, I'm working with them for a day a week. And it, like, I've seen the difference it's made a difference in ticket sales, it's made a difference in orchestra players, it's made a difference in funding applications. um so yeah, it's been amazing.
Well, let's talk about that little piece you slipped in there, that it's now you and a small team. So, one of the reasons that we're doing this podcast series is to talk about what it's like to set up a successful social media management company, which you have done. You have 6 clients, but there is something that happens when you get to that 6 client range. You need a little bit of help and support. So let's talk about that. You have started to take on some support to help you?
Yes, so there's 4 of us, myself, another Tech Pixie, who's also a musician. And then I was quite fortunate last year that one of the groups I was working with partnered with a university, and they took on some master students, and they worked with me kind of one-on-one for a couple of months. And I basically taught them everything I knew. Um,
Love it.
so we planned social media campaigns together, and they saw it through, did it all themselves, and then we came back together at the end and looked at all the analytics. So I know that they're good because I've trained them. So there's two people that have kind of just graduated from uni and are out there in the world doing other fantastic musical things, and then another Tech Pixie as well, who's also a musician and absolutely wonderful.
I love, and we hear this all the time, that Tech Pixies are working together, collaborating together. There's 2 reasons for that. One, they've got the skills and the training because you've been through it yourself. And 2, they've got the mindset shifts that are required to stay positive, to push through challenges and all that stuff. So I think that's really important. Well, let's talk about what it's like to hire the first person. I'm assuming you've done it with contracts where you're contracting them, or do you have them as employees?
No, they're freelance.
Okay.
So we're all kind of working freelance.
Yeah, great. Well, this is great because it's important. I just want to start breaking it down for people who are thinking, okay, I want to bring people onto my team and that's how I want to do it. So you've done it as freelance. And what was the biggest hurdle you had to overcome when you were making the decision to bring the first team member on?
Really, it was just kind of a money versus time thing. I got past the point where I was covering childcare fees, which was good. And then I was kind of at the point like, well, I could take on some more clients and help some more people, but I don't really have enough time for that. But I'd really like to do it. I know some people that would be amazing to work with. And it would be worth hiring them or getting them on board, because then there's like more hours that I can then allocate to other groups and things.
And sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I'm done.
Oh, well, I was gonna say, and then how did you figure out what you were gonna do with your pricing structure in order to cover the people that you were working with? How did that work out for you? Was it something that you guys all went in on together, or was it something that you said, okay, right, I'm gonna do the contract, I'm gonna set the rates, and then I'm gonna pay you out of that?
Yeah, that's what I did, the second one. So yeah, I set up the rates and then pay the other guys, and they invoice me and I pay them from.
Okay, great. So yeah, so you invoice the client pays you, your team invoices you, you pay them.
Exactly.
Great. Okay, cool. Well, I love breaking this down because some people don't know this part of how to set this up and how to structure it. So I so appreciate that you are sharing that information with the audience that might be listening to this, because there might be a few people listening to this going, wow, she did that. I would love to do that too. So what are some of the strategy tips that you have? Because obviously you have been able to work out how to create a strategy, how to execute that strategy, how to report on that strategy. It's music to my ears, no pun intended, but music to my ears when you were talking about, setting up a strategy and then, looking back at the analytics. We believe really strongly at Tech Pixies that you set a plan and then you execute on that plan and then you reflect back and you say what worked, what didn't work, so that you can make the next plan better. What are your top tips around strategy? Because that's definitely an area that you've specialized in, because obviously your strategy is working for various different organizations.
So what I tend to do is, on a monthly basis, we have like what people call buckets. So buckets of different types of content. So it might be that one bucket is education work, one bucket is concerts, one bucket is I've got a group today that are launching up their own podcast. And so each kind of group has 5 or 6 different ideas that we create the content around. And we try and mix it up a bit. so that you're not having like concert all in a row, because even though it's really, really, really important to publicize your concerts, if you're just saying buy tickets all the time, that's going to get a bit boring. So we have these buckets, and we kind of, depending on how many times a week we're posting for each client, just schedule it out in a calendar and then go back and fill in the blanks, really, with the details of the event. Or I've kind of quite got into customer centric marketing. So rather than it being me saying, right, come to this event, it'll be like, this event's going to make you feel amazing.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. So shifting the, really selling the transformation of that event for the person rather than, well, and someone, I taught the social media crash course on Tuesday. I mean, obviously this is, if you're listening to this, is on record, you might be listening on record. So, but when I was teaching it, someone was talking about how they had to learn that, how they're trying to convince their client there's a difference between broadcasting and engaging, right? So concert, buy tickets, that is broadcasting.
Yeah.
And engaging is, like you said, this is going to change your life, it's going to give you relaxation, it's going to, whatever you want to point out, that it's going to, like you said, make you feel amazing. It is interesting because my husband loves live music. And obviously throughout the pandemic, you couldn't do anything that was live music. And I did not grow up the way he did, with going to live music all the time and really engaging in it. But he's also half deaf. And so one of the things that I didn't realize for him was, like, listening to the radio or listening to music on a device was not that entertaining for him, or not that nice for him, because it didn't sound so great. But actually, when you go to a live performance, there is actually a vibration that happens in your body. And, there is a change that happens in your body as you're listening to it. And we went to I think it was Billy Bragg was the first concert we went to after the lockdown. And I just looked at him like, I totally get it. Music experience in real life is very different than listening to it on a device.
Oh, it is, absolutely. And I think they both have their place. Like, we listen to stuff at home all the time because I am obviously musical, but I would feel much calmer, and I do feel much calmer putting on an orchestra on the TV and not worrying about the kids being noisy in the background. Like, then they can enjoy it in their own time, in their own space, without me having to go, shh, you got to be quiet now, which I would if we were at the Bridgewater Hall or the Royal Albert Hall or something like that. So I think they both have their space, but yeah, like live music, it does feel so different, doesn't it?
So tell me, looking at where your life is now, right? Let's just think for a minute where we are now with your 6 clients, your team of 4, including yourself. You've not only covered your nursery fees, but you're also paying yourself. What is that, when you look back at where you were, when you look back at that first day of the free training, or the first day as starting the Tech Pixies course, what would you tell yourself?
Just do it. Just do it. Just be brave and do it. I mean, anything's worth a try, isn't it? If you think it's going to change your life, which it clearly has. But yeah, I think I was still quite nervous starting it, and now it just, life is so different. We're actually moving house in a few weeks, which would definitely never have happened if I wasn't earning what I am now. So
Do you know what? That is the second Tech Pixie in the last week who's told me that their job, their financial contribution has changed, has been allowed them to move house and get a new mortgage. And that's incredible. Well, and you know what? That's the theory of change, right? So Tech Pixies is a social enterprise. We started out as a social enterprise. We still are a social enterprise. And a big part of that is leaning into a theory of change. My theory of change is, if you upskill women with technology and you upskill the mindset, right? Level up the mindset, the combination of those two things allows a woman to become financially independent. And it gives her the ability, I should say. She has to make the decision that that's what she wants, but you clearly made that decision. And that's one of the reasons that I think you were, among many other reasons, the winner for the social media service provider, because you just embody all of the things that I believe we stand for at Tech Pixies. And so I want to say thank you for doing that. It's not, like you said, you probably did a lot of this scared. And,
Yeah.
I comment all the time on the Mindset Mondays, I'm scared every day, guys. You just have to befriend your fear, and recognize that fear is a requirement to a more freer, expanded version of yourself. And we have to learn to work with it and see it as a positive, and as a sign that we're going in the right direction. And then develop coping mechanisms to get through it. Did you find that the life coaching toolkit and the life coaching that was provided and the neuro coaching that was provided really helped with that part of the journey?
Absolutely. I mean, I have learned so much about myself, not just like having the ability and the skills, but about myself as a person and how my brain works and how I deal with feelings and things like that through Tech Pixies. I mean, I'll be honest, I looked at other courses and I just kept coming back to Tech Pixies. I was like, this is just the complete package. It's not just the social media skills, it's growing as a person as well.
Yeah. Well, that's so important to me. And I think it's important to me. When I set up Tech Pixies, I wanted to do the combination of the two, because I had so many hurdles to overcome, and I needed a coach to help me get through it. In fact, when I started the program, I was not the coach, the neuro coach, the dream builder coach. I was the project manager, really. I brought in coaches to do the different things. And it wasn't, a little bit like probably if I look at myself 7 years ago when we first started, and if you said, oh, Joy, you're going to become a master neuro coach, and, you're going to help people, rewire their subconscious so that they can do something, in life that they would love to do, I would have just said, no way, you gotta be joking. That's not what I would have thought. So I think, we go, as we take steps towards something we would love, we would call them the unseen forces, or, the universe conspires in our favor to create the environment that allows us to become the next version of ourselves. And we can choose to embrace that and feel the fear, or we can choose to not embrace it and, not make that progress. I'm curious, a lot of women, before they move into paid contracts, do voluntary work, which you did. As after the free training, you did some voluntary work. How did you make the transition? Because I know a lot of women who do the free work, but even someone who emailed us into the support inbox yesterday, who's a longstanding client or longstanding student of ours, and she's done some amazing work, and she sent me through all the work that she'd done. It was very professional, very high level. And, yet when I was encouraging her to start putting together an invoice, and, even if she gave 100% discount, putting together an invoice to sort of start to see the value of her work, that was still a step that she needed to make. How did you make that step from free work to paid work? What were the moves you made, and how did it feel?
I think because I hadn't really been out of paid work, obviously I'd been on maternity leave, but I'd been doing other bits and bobs, not very much, a couple of hours a week, paid work alongside the voluntary social media stuff. It didn't feel like that much of a jump, but my first kind of paid social media client actually was a group that I was working with in a different capacity, and they just said, actually, if you could do this consistently for us, we'll pay you. And I went, great,
Okay.
cool. And then I applied for a social media role and got it, which was the very first thing I kind of applied for, which was over a year ago now. And
And are you still, is that still one of your contracts?
Yeah, I love working.
So I love that. So, and that's a testament to actually going out and looking for the jobs that are being advertised and then applying for them as a contractor. rather than trying to dig up your own clientele and build up your own client list, because that's a great way. They've already got a budget because they want to hire someone. That's a great tip. So what did you do with your voluntary work? Did you wind that up? What did you do?
Yeah, so it was a set amount of time. It was working towards something in the summer. So I said I'll do it for you until your kind of event ends. So it came to a natural end anyway, which was perfect because then like 2 weeks later I started Tech Pixies.
That's amazing. But also, I want to highlight what you did there, which is really important. And I tell this to everyone, and people just don't think it's that important. Even if you're doing a voluntary contract or voluntary opportunity, create a contract. Start date, end date. Here's what I'm going to deliver. Here's what happens if it's not going well, or we haven't, hit our targets, or you're not happy, whatever. Giving yourself, a 1 week notice or a 2 week notice to let the project go, etc. And it doesn't have to be like super legal. It can be a sheet of paper that says this, I'm going to start on this day. I'm going to end on this day. These are the services I'm going to provide for you. These are the things you're going to provide for me. I think that's also really important, because if you're working with someone, whether it's paid or unpaid, and especially in the social media space, they do need to provide some things for you. They might need to provide some images or some videos, unless you're the one that's actually doing those for them. So I think that's a really great point. But having a start date and an end date really makes those volunteer contracts a lot easier, and they don't just roll on forever. And what I've noticed is if people don't have those things in place, it gets awkward when they're ready to move on and they're not prepared. So that's great advice. I love that. And I also love your advice about, I went for the jobs that were already out there and they had the budget they wanted to pay. They just needed me. I think that is amazing. Really amazing. And how did your other contracts come? Did they come the same way, or were they?
No.
So tell us about that.
The next one, I shared one of their posts on Instagram, and they just sent me a message saying, "Are you a social media manager?" And I went, "Yes."
Yes, I am.
Yes, I am. And I'd been working with the job that I just said that I'd applied for. I'd been working with them for about 6 months. And I was kind of at a point where, do I get more childcare? Do I just go all in on this, or do I just keep it as like a little 1 day, 2 day a week thing? And I thought, no, do you know what? I'm really enjoying this, and I can really see the difference it's making. Like the guys I've been working with, they just hit 1,000 YouTube subscribers, and like it was just like amazing. I was like, I'm just gonna go for it. And so I've been working with them since July last year, and then a lot of the other work has kind of come through them, like recommendations from them, or groups have seen that I'm working with them and gone, oh, what you're doing there is great, we'd love if you could do that with us too.
And that's the advantage of niching down, actually. Yeah. And one of the mistakes that people make is they try and take whatever account comes their way in whatever medium, and not something they're passionate about. But actually, if you niche down to something you're passionate about and you get results, the reputation spreads, and that's what really matters there.
And I think because I know so much about music, obviously being a musician, having a music degree, I don't think another social media manager that wasn't a musician could necessarily do the job as well.
Absolutely.
Because some of it's really quite technical, like about the instruments or the addition of the music, and because I specialize in early music as well, so it's like music from before 1750. So it's really old. It's really very specific, and I think other people might struggle with that. But yeah, if you find your niche and you're good at it, go for it. Just stick with it.
I love that. I really love that. There are so many golden nuggets in here. And I think if someone's thinking, I have a unique niche and I have a unique skill set, and also, we have people in our community who are, in gardening or in cooking, baking, also in beauty, fashion, yoga, Pilates. The thing about social media is it permeates anything that you can dream up doing as a business. Is social media is more or less required in order to reach people that you don't know. And I think that's a really, but I think the other side of this is that there are companies and organizations out there that have budgets to hire social media managers. So if you've got all that knowledge already built up, you just transfer it with your new skill set. So tell me what your favorite part of being a social media manager and now having built up effectively a social media agency. Tell me what your favorite part of it is now.
Zoom calls with the clients. That sounds ridiculous. It's like nothing to do with social media at all, but I just really enjoy kind of being in the music world and hearing what they're saying and saying, oh, somebody's emailed us, they must have seen us on social media, has this come through you? And kind of having that feedback from them, which is just like unmeasurable, isn't it? It's just the feeling you get when you know that you're doing great work for people. Yeah, so seeing the results, but not necessarily the analytics, seeing the results via the client and how happy they are.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's so great. Well, I always love talking to customers too. And it sounds like you've actually done a pretty good job of finding customers that really good customers. I mean, the advantage of going for a job application or, going for a contract job is it's almost an interview two ways, right? So they're interviewing you, you're interviewing them, and you can turn the job down if you want to, right? So you also, it sounds like you've done a good job picking clients that you enjoy working with. And that also makes life a lot easier. And I remember when I was really early on, one of the mistakes I made was taking every client and, but then you had some clients that just, they always haggled on price. They never, sent you the stuff you needed on time. And, you end up working extra hours and they needed lots of changes. And that was really not fun for me. And I had to sit down with my business partner and say, right, which clients do we love and why do we love them and how do we find more of them? And I think when people don't have the confidence level in their skill set and also the gut feeling that they don't have to take every client, that they can sort of navigate towards the clients that they love, that does happen. But it sounds like you've managed to avoid that and you've been able to build up a really great client base that you love working with.
Yeah, I mean, from a kind of selfish point of view, I think I would find my job harder if I didn't 100% believe in the groups that I'm working with. Because you are them online, you have to embody them online, and if you don't believe in what it is that they're doing and their ethos and things like that, then it's going to make your job much harder. So I have said no to some people because I just knew that I wouldn't be the best person for them, and it would make my life more difficult.
I love that. So you have said no to people.
Yeah.
I think that's really powerful and very important for people to hear as well, that it's okay to say no, because when you say yes to something that's not quite right, it takes up time in your schedule that could be reserved for someone that is right for you.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
so great.
exactly.
Well, what would be your, we're going to wrap this up now, but what I want to know from you is, what would you say, to the person who's obviously, you said just do it earlier, the person that was in your shoes, done the free training and wanting to do everything else. But what would you say to the Tech Pixie who's listening to this, who's finished the program or halfway through the program and is thinking about starting a social media agency? What would you say to her? What would your advice to her be?
I would say assess all of your skills as a whole and find out what you're passionate about outside of social media, and then use that to build your agency around. So really, really find that your area of expertise, no matter what it is. If, like you say, it could be that you absolutely love making pizza, so go and work with a load of pizza restaurants. Or it could be that you absolutely love crochet, go and work with a load of handmade crocheters. I don't know. But yeah, really find what it is that you're passionate about, and then you will excel at what you're doing.
Ah, that's a great place to finish. Now, do you have your award somewhere for us to see?
I need to spin the other way. It's just behind me. Can you see? No, that way.
Yeah, I can see that it's on the piano. That's so great. There it is. Well, congratulations. Well deserved. Our social media service provider of the year 2021. Sarah Bronner, you're a total star. Thank you for being here. Thank you for this interview. And I know a lot of people listening will have learned a lot from you, and you will have inspired quite a few people to knuckle down and create their own agencies. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.